Greetings. My name is Louise Dente, and I welcome you to yet another edition of Cultural Caravan. On this edition is a special, as we are joined by, we call Queen Mother, Betty Dopson.
Betty J. Dopson's two careers and life mission enabled her to have significant positive impact on both children and adults for decades, serving as the Public Relations Director at Harlem Hospital Center for 15 years. It helped her develop an iron-cast understanding and belief that racist media was and still is a major contributor to America's ideas of white supremacy. She believed that centuries of derogatory media portrayal of African history, culture, individuals, and intelligence required radical change. Her 15 years as PR director at Harlem Hospital was used to create another identity for the famous Black-run institution, despite misrepresentation of the important medical institution as being second-rate. In 1987, while still at Harlem Hospital, she collaborated with a medical resident, now known as Dr. James McIntosh, to develop a media watch organization, CEMOTAP, which continues to operate 36 years to this day. CEMOTAP operates as a financially independent African media watch that owns its own headquarters. Challenging racist content in both electronic, print, and digital media is at the core of its successful operation. Over the years, CEMOTAP assists activists and political prisoners, holds STEM classes for students, conducts a travel club, and provides food to seniors suffering from food insecurity. Never seeking nor accepting grants or assistance from outside the Black community, CEMOTAP has existed solely from the generosity of the Black community. In 2024, Queen Mother Betty Dopson celebrates her 90th birthday. Her work in the community has been an inspiration to many.
Welcome, Sister Betty, to the Cultural Caravan.
Hello and thank you and welcome. I feel welcome.
Now, this year was a special because this was your 90th birthday this year, and it was a grand celebration. Lots of people came out to celebrate you and the work and the contributions that you've made through the New York community, as well as now residing in Ohio and throughout the country. And it was really an opportunity to really say and to reflect on those decades of service. But let's go back a little bit. Tell us about your early upbringing. What inspired you from a little girl to go into the endeavors? What was your inspiration?
Well, I have to be careful when I answer that question because I was inspired, and at the same time, I was sort of discouraged because I lived born in a small village in Ohio called Hubbard. Went to an all-white school, and the teachers there did not want us. And so while they were encouraging the white students, to read and to write and to create, be creative, I sort of just absorbed that because no one ever encouraged me in that school to do anything. It was I still have nightmares about being in that school. So, but I would see that there's something there that they keep encouraging their students to be expressive, to write poetry, to read the masters and what have you. So if that could be encouragement, I guess that's what I'll call it. So can you get encouragement from negativity? I don't know. I think that's what I actually got. Then when I married and came to New York, um, I met people that were really poets, activists, writers, and they gave expression to what it was like to live Black in America. And I could name quite a few people that I was encouraged by, but I'm going to name Judge Bruce Wright. Had a relationship with Judge Bruce Wright. And not only was he an incredible jurist, he was also a poet. He even wrote a poem for me that I
Mm,
that I, that I treasured. Yes. Mhm.
mm.
And so if I think back over it, I was always writing. I was always, as a little girl, I used to, write plays and force my friends to participate in the plays. So I guess it was sort of in me. And then along the way, I received encouragement from different sources.
Tell us about your parents because they were your first teachers. What did they instill, despite the fact you were living in a very racist society? What did your parents do to fortify you, to immunize you, if I may say, against racism?
Well, I have to say that it was a blessing to have the parents that I had. My father, he was a Nat Turner, if you will. My mother, she was a very religious, and they were, an unusual couple. As a matter of fact, one of my uh, poetry stories is about my parents. Um, if you, I could probably read a little bit about one of them, one of my poetry stories about them. My mother's name was Willie B, and she was from Leesburg, Georgia. My father was from Georgia, also, Leesburg, and they both grew up on a sharecropper's farm. And I put together, this is way back in 1917. So I say Willie B she was pretty, and Floyd, my father, he was Black and strong, and they were both raised on this sharecropper's farm. And on the strength of their love, they escaped the prevailing darkness that allowed them to be careful with their laughter and to look for a better place. But they adored each other, and it was obvious, and it showed that love actually showed on their face, and of course that love also embraced us, their children. Floyd, he wanted to marry my mother, and so that she could really be his wife, and my mother wanted to marry my father because she wanted him as the center of her life. They adored each other. Now they lived on this farm, this sharecropper's farm, which was a horror. Um, and the owner of the farm, and my father told this story over and over and over that this person who owned this sharecropper's farm, his name was Charlie Shepherd. And he was a drunk, and he loved to fight. And so he dressed a certain way during the day, but he wore a Klansman's robe at night. And my father, he knew this, and he was he was like a terrorist to the black field workers on his farm. And he said, "No, you can't marry until the harvest is in, and then I might even think about it. Well, when Charlie Shepherd, he heard the wedding and he heard about the wedding plans and he exploded. Charlie Shepherd said, "Oh no, mm-mm. Uh, this they can't they can't marry. No, they got to listen to me, and uh, I think they got to wait until after the harvest and marry, and then even then I might have to see." Uh, but Floyd and Willie B, my parents, they did not wait. They jumped the broom, became man and wife, and now they could enjoy the rest of their life. But then, when Charles Shepherd heard of the wedding, he came storming into my grandmother's house. He screamed at my grandmother, "Dilly, I heard that son of yours got married. Is that true? He's a hot-headed nigger. He's heading for trouble, and I got to straighten him out. Where is he, Dilly? Where is he?" Well, Dilly said, "Please, please, please, Mr. Charlie, don't hurt my child. He didn't mean no harm. You know he about one of the best workers you got on your farm." Charlie Shepherd turned and rushed through the grass, mumbling, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna kick that nigga's ass. I'm gonna get you, Floyd. You know what I told you. You know why I forbid you to marry, but you married anyway. Now I'm gonna teach you a lesson that you ain't never gonna forget. And I'm gonna whip your black behind and make you really regret." Young Floyd said, and this was my daddy that I admired so much, "Listen here, Mr. Charlie, don't come in here messing with me. I'm a man like you, Mr. Charlie. I want my own family." Charlie Shepherd, he charged into the barn and grabbed a whip and was aimed it for my father's face. My father grabbed that whip, twisted his arm, and yanked it out of place. Well, Floyd, after he took that whip from me, he beat him and left him in a bloody mess with only the clothes on his back. My father ran for the wilderness. He had no money, but he knew how to use the North Star as his guide. So Charlie Shepherd, he was a bad man, and he did not allow those field hands, which that's what my daddy was, to ever do anything on their own. He sought to emasculate them, but he picked the wrong one. Father said, "Charlie Shepherd, you can't strip me of my pride. You was wrong, Mr. Charlie, to come messing with me. I'm a man like you, Mr. Charlie. I'm a man. I want to be a man with a family." And he was running through the forest, trying to hide, but he heard the barking and the baying of the dogs. And he reached a shallow river, broke off a reed, submerged himself in the river, and he could hear them when they got near the river edge. He heard Charlie Shepherd say, "Oh Lord, that nigga, he dead." Well, Floyd laid under that cold water. Can you imagine laying in water, breathing through a reed? But he did it. And when he came out, he was all alone. He saw an old man coming along a road. Man was in a wagon pulled by a mule. So he ran out and he said, "Please help me, sir. I got to get away." The old man looked at him and he said, "Climb in the back of this wagon and get up under this hay. I can tell by the look in your eyes, you must be a runaway." When you hear me coming singing and talking to my mule, you jump out from under that hay and don't look back. The son, you'll be very close to the Tallahassee Railroad track. Boy, jump on that train and ride to the end of the line. I'll be praying for God to help you because you're in for a very hard time. Let me tell you something. Louise, at the tender age of 20, my father became a vagrant, a hobo, a man without a home. He ended up in Philadelphia, frightened, all alone, sleeping in doorways because he had no place to sleep, begging for food because he had no place to eat. Determined, he didn't give up. He dealt with hunger, he dealt with toil and strife. He had much better plans for himself for the rest of his life. He lived and he dreamed and he worked to reunite with his wife. It was 6 long years before it happened that he could send for his Willie B to be at his side. When she stepped off that train and presented him his daughter, he fell to his knees and cried, I now have my own family. And later they moved to Ohio for a much better life. She bore him 7 more children as his devoted wife. Floyd lived out his dream to have his own family. 4 boys, 4 girls. Those were members of his family. One of them girls turned out to be none other than Betty Dopson, me. Louise, that tells the story of my father. He didn't take any stuff from anybody, black or white, to tell you the truth. And my mother, she was there. They loved each other. They raised us. They gave us values, and they helped us to understand when you're black in America, it's hard to be a woman and a man.
Mm. It's absolutely beautiful. I was just spellbound, and I can see that the fortitude, the sustainability, all the characteristics of a very strong union embedded in your being. And so I thank you for sharing that powerful story with us. Thinking about those early beginnings and what the foundation, which is a very strong foundation that you stepped upon the stage of life on. Now you said taking you to Ohio. So it tells us how you got to the Ohio where your family settled. Tell us how you got to New York. What encouraged you to move from Ohio to New York?
There was always someone coming to live with us in Ohio. They'd come from the South, stay with us for a while till they get their bearings, then they move on. So my father's brother, his name was Augustus, but we called him Uncle Tip. And he was my godfather, and he was close to me. He was an alcoholic, but he was the sweetest man I ever knew. And every time he'd come in the house, he'd sing a song to me. And I loved his singing. It was off key, and he made up his lyrics as he thought about them. So he moved on to New York. While in New York, because he'd come out straight out of the country and he didn't know anything about traffic, he stepped in front of a cab. The cab hit him and killed him. So Betty Dopson, being the godchild, I was allowed to go to his funeral. I was the only one out of all the kids. I was the only one to go to his funeral. And while in his funeral, my aunt, who and my dad, they drove to New York. They didn't know how to drive in that traffic, so my aunt ran into an embankment trying to follow the hearse. The hearse was in and out of traffic. Uh, they were just lost in the sauce. So my aunt ran into an embankment, and when we got to the cemetery, the car would not start, and so we had to be towed back we were in Manhattan, And it took a week to get the car fixed. She always drove a Cadillac. So I'm sitting around there, and I guess they felt sorry for me. And they said, one of my cousins said, Betty's probably would like to meet my friend's son. He he's home on furlough, and maybe he'll come and take her for a bus ride. That's back in the day. When you went on a bus ride back in the day, that was a very romantic thing. Or when I saw that fine looking, well built, smiling, I was, oh yeah. But I was young, so make the story short, that tall, fine, good looking man became my husband. So he didn't just, let me tell you something, things were different back in the day. He had to come because after we talked on the phone back and forth about 7 or 8 months, he said, let's get married. I said, well, you have to come and ask my dad if you can marry me. So he said, okay. And he came and he met my father. And my father, he said he's a fine man, but he ain't got no neck. Now, my father found something wrong with everybody. So uh, we got married uh, in very early 50s. And we were married for 52 years.
Mm. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful story. And in terms of, so I, this is just so important that people have that understanding. Not only do we understand the parents, the family that you came from, and the strong ethics that they instilled through their life story, but also how you met your wonderful life partner. And, this is really I'm going to say part one of our conversation with you as you laid out that wonderful foundation about how you and your story begins. In part two, we're going to continue the conversation as it relates to your continued work here in New York, because you've made an impact in terms of what you did, the people you connected to, and certainly you're going to talk to us about that first position that you had. My understanding was Harlem Hospital. I'm sure that maybe I left something out, and then talking about CEMOTAP itself. So thank you for this first half. I just want to say to our audience, I hope you've enjoyed this broadcast, and we continue to encourage you to tune in, to write, and to tell a friend. But until next time, Louise Dente saying thank you.
Cultural Caravan TV can be seen 24/7 on youtube.com at ccptv.org/Louise Dente or Roku TV. Get the Roku TV phone app for Android and iPhones to the Cultural Caravan past and present episodes.